Welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We've got quite a few things to discuss today, but it should be a slightly shorter show. First of all, we're going to talk around PSR being scrapped. Now, I know this happened last week, but we haven't actually discussed it on the channel, and I haven't actually seen a lot of Leeds content creators discussing it, so we are going to talk a bit about PSR being scrapped and SCR, what exactly that is. And one of the reasons why I've waited on this is because I want to get a firm understanding of what actually SCR is before I sort of inform you all you guys. But we're talking about that. We're also going to talk about these fake rumours that are going around regarding Daniel Farke. He hasn't been sacked, people. There's your breaking statement. He hasn't been sacked. He might be sacked, but he hasn't been sacked yet. So do ignore Wacko on Twitter, ignore all these people spreading it, ignore IndyCarly, etc. These are not credible outlets, so let's ignore them. So we'll talk a bit about that, and we're also going to talk about a few things that are building up regarding the Daniel Farke situation as well. We're also going to talk about Stach's current situation at Leeds United as well. He's currently suffering with an injury, as we know. He picked up at the weekend, which actually was the start of Leeds United's first goal, winning that header over Martinez. However, the concussion rules, and we'll talk a bit about where and how Daniel and how Anton Stach is going to feature for Leeds United going forward. Is he going to be fit for the next few games? I'll give you a hint, potentially. No. So we'll talk a bit about that as well and how that's going to impact the Leeds United moment at this moment in time. But before we get into all that, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively helps the channel and lets other people who like this sort of content as well see it. So if you are enjoying this stuff at this moment in time, if you could do that, that would be fantastic. And also, if you're watching after live, if you could also do this thing called a hype on the video, if you could do that as well, that really helps me at this moment in time. So if you could do that as well, fantastic. Anyway, let's start with this PSR being scrapped thing and SCR, and what is that, and does it benefit Leeds? Well, I think the first thing to talk about this is this was announced on Friday. So that basically they're scrapping PSR in favour of SCR. And what actually is SCR? Well, SCR is squad cost rules, basically. That's what it's all about. And it's about basically your squad value, and you can only spend a certain amount of money based on how much your revenue actually is. So similar to what's going on in PSR. One thing to mention with this that I thought was really interesting though when I was reading about it today is that Leeds United actually voted against this. So obviously, as people know, to get things through in the Premier League, you need 14 clubs to vote for it. Well, Leeds United were actually one of the 6 clubs that didn't vote for it because 14 voted in favour of SCR, and of course only 6 clubs voted against it. I think there was Brighton, there was Brentford, there was Crystal Palace, Fulham. Who else was it? Let me check my notes. Fulham, Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, as well as Leeds United. So they were the 6 clubs that voted against it. But what does it actually mean for Leeds United, and what is the difference? Well, the singular difference is that beforehand, basically the new rule is to get into that is that you can now spend, so your revenue that you get in, Leeds United will now be able to spend 85% of their revenue that they make every single season on players, so player wages, player transfer fees over amortisation, which is obviously the same as before, and of course they'll be able to spend it on agent fees, which is also interlinked with this. We'll also get into your comments after I get through all this as well. So the previous rules allowed clubs to lose 105 million over a 3-year period. Now you're allowed to lose 85 million. Now you're allowed to use not 85 million, 85, or you're only allowed to spend 85% of your revenue. So that's why it's slightly different. Rather than being able to lose 105 million, you're only allowed to spend 85% on your team. And what's interesting about this rule is, obviously, I think there was a lot of differences with PSR in terms of how points deductions were granted and what points deductions were given for. And obviously we know that likes of, I think Forest were at 20 million over. I think Leicester maybe was as much as 40 million over. But there's much more of an obvious structure as to how people get points deduction now. So if you break SCR, you will get a 6-point penalty, even if you break it by £1 million. And every single million over that first million that you break, you will get an additional point. So if you go 2 million over, you'll get the 6 points for breaking it, and then an extra 1 point for obviously breaking it by £1 million. And that's slightly different. And I think that sort of changes up slightly. And the other thing that's sort of interesting with this SCR thing is it's also going to not be fully applicable for the first year. So it's going to come in next summer, but it's not going to be fully applicable for next summer, because what will end up happening with the SCR is next season you will have a buffer zone to obviously get out of this and get into the new system. So Leeds United actually next year will be able to spend 115% of our revenue on player, like we talked about, on squad building. But what this will also mean is is that a lot of things are removed from this. So we know one of the reasons why Everton broke PSR was due to debts on the football club because of the debts for the new stadium, the new Hill Dickinson Stadium. Debt repayments used to go towards your PSR accounts. They do no longer count. As I said, it's literally just amortisation transfer fees, player wages and agent fees. That is all that's going to go for this. So Leeds United now can employ as many staff as they want to. They can put the club into debt, do whatever they want, and it will not go on the PSR book sheet like before. So Leeds United, I would hope, with this new rule, will be able to do more infrastructure in the football club. And when we're looking at Leeds United building a new stadium, which we know is something Leeds United want to do, that's fantastic because none of that goes towards PSR at all. But what it also means is that if you want to create revenue in the football club, we've seen the likes of Aston Villa and Chelsea in previous years sell assets to the football club. So they've sold women's team of Aston Villa, so have Chelsea, and Chelsea have also sold hotels. That no longer can go towards SCR. So Leeds United, in essence, couldn't sell Ellen Road Stadium now to themselves to allow to spend more money, basically. They're not allowed to do that. But as I said, you are now allowed to spend as much money as you want, basically, as long as on everything except player transfer fees and, like we talked about, amortised transfer fees, wages, and of course agent fees as well. So I hope that gives you an understanding of the situation at the moment in time. But as I said, what's interesting is I was listening to a financial expert talk this morning, and they were talking about sort of why certain clubs have voted against it. And obviously, you'd expect Brighton, Brentford, and Bournemouth, they are really well-run clubs at this moment in time, doing really well, not really close to breaking any PSR rules at all. So that's why they voted against it, because actually they're doing quite well with the old thing. But what's interesting is actually Leeds United voted against it, yet Leeds United, as we know, are in quite a perilous PSR position. So I think we're probably going to see in a few weeks, or maybe when this further comes out, why Leeds United actually voted against this agreement rather than going for it, because on paper it looks like it would be beneficial to Leeds United. So hopefully in the future we'll see a sort of a better situation with that. But that is the situation regarding PSR. So PSR will be down the Swanee, and now you're going to have to talk about SCR instead. I hope that explained it in the best way possible. It's kind of complicated, so if you have got any questions, you are watching live, I can answer them as we go through, because I think you'll probably have similar questions to other people as well who are watching on the after show. So that's absolutely fine. Ollie says, won't affect us next season anymore, seeming as we're down. Yeah, well, potentially, mate, potentially. But then when we get back to the Premier League, of course, they will be in play. One thing to mention as well is, because I think people go, oh, but this is going to benefit the top six clubs, which probably will, because I feel like everything seems to benefit the top six clubs. But what it is Leeds United, and if you're not in Europe, you can spend 85% of your revenue on player wages, transfer fees, amortised transfer fees, and of course agent fees. However, if you are in Europe, you can only spend 70% of your revenue on them things. You can't do it. It's 85 for everyone outside Europe and 70% for in Europe. So hopefully that maybe will bring the gap slightly different to what it was before. And the final thing to mention with this as well is there was also a proposal on the day as well around anchoring. And the idea of anchoring was that the bottom club, so last season it would have been Southampton, you can only spend 5 times what the bottom club can spend in the Premier League. So Southampton, I think last year raised on revenue £110 million. So technically Liverpool would only be able to spend £550 million every season on all them aspects. However, it was voted for by a few clubs, but rejected by a lot of clubs. I think there was only 6 clubs that actually voted for that. So that is the situation currently with the SCR PSR stuff. As I said, if you are watching live and you want a question, or even after, if you're watching watching the after record and you want to drop a question, I'm sure I'll see it and I can sort of let you know what I know, basically. Anyway, let's get on into the Daniel Farke rumours, shall we? And then we'll go to Stach next. So Daniel Farke, there's been a lot of talk over the last 24 hours, as Ollie said in the chat. Evening was gutted last night that the rumours weren't true. Yeah, well, there was, as Ollie said, a lot of rumours flying around yesterday evening that Daniel Farke had been sacked. I think there was something on Wacko that people got really excited about. I saw loads of tweets everywhere about people saying that Daniel Farke's been sacked. I'm hearing Daniel Farke's been sacked. And I feel like, and this is probably not just a Leeds United thing, but probably other clubs do this as well, as soon as one rumour says it, if I tweeted out saying Daniel Farke was sacked, I think 10 minutes later, everyone would be going, oh, wow, Daniel Farke is sacked because there's rumours going around, blah, 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 blah. the truth of the matter is, with this Daniel Farke situation, he probably will be sacked at some point. It's not yet. And what I'm slightly worried about is that you're seeing big accounts now, the likes of IndyCarly, etc., picking up on this story. I think IndyCarly tweeted out that there's pressure at Leeds United and there's a sort of there's conversations at boardroom level about him losing his job. All nonsense. IndyCarly is a fake account. He's a guy who used to work at KFC, if you really want the detail of him. He is not. I know he's got thousands and thousands of followers, and sometimes he might get stuff right. He gets stuff right because he guesses. He is not a journalist. So please, for your sake, do not believe Daniel Farke has been sacked. As I said, he might have been sacked, but nowhere credible has suggested he's been sacked yet, so he probably hasn't been. My honest feeling with Daniel Farke is the same thing, and I've been thinking about this today, as obviously all the rumours have been triggering around, and I'm interested to see where you guys think on this. I think Daniel Farke will be sacked after Man City. I think that's what will happen. I think what will happen is they'll sack him after Man City, and then we've got Chelsea at home, Liverpool at home, as we all know, and we can go into that fresh and ready to go. And I think that's how it's going to work. I think that's how it's going to work. I think they'll throw him in for Man City, expecting us to get beat. We'll probably then get beat in that game, probably get beat heavily. They'll probably have a manager lined up, and then we'll fight, and we'll get. I think they'll sack him with a manager straight away to go. Is my honest feeling. So anyway, that is the situation. Because also to bear in mind, I think we've got Man City this weekend. Then Chelsea's midweek, so we don't midweek. We have a midweek game against Chelsea, and then we have Liverpool. So it's not like it's 3 weekends on the trot. We've got basically Chelsea in a midweek game, which is the only thing that I worry about slightly. Because if Chelsea's a midweek game, do you want to bring a new manager in for a midweek game when he can't do any training, or do you think we'll give him Man City, we'll give him Liverpool, and we'll give him Chelsea, and we'll give him Liverpool, and then we've got the games at the weekend. Then after, obviously, then we've got a bit of a break until the Brentford game, a week for the new manager to get his ideas across. So I don't know how you guys would do it, but I think by Liverpool definitely will be sacked. But if I was to guess, maybe after Man City, but I'm not so sure because, of course, that Chelsea game is midweek. But the truth is, as I said, there is nothing going on at this moment in time about Daniel Farke being sacked except speculation in the fan base. So, you know, that is the situation, really. What if true, at least we'll have Farke to get us up for the final year of his contract. They said on Wacko that he's gone, but waiting for a new manager work permit. So if that's true, probably not. Then they'll wait for Farke to lose at City with the new manager for the next 2 home games. Yeah, I think potentially that might happen, Ollie. As I said, I think if we lose heavily at City, it's a good opportunity then to sack Daniel Farke. The only thing that's, as I said, slightly concerns me is if you want to bring a new manager in, you want to bring a new manager in when he's got a bit of time to work with the team before the next games. And I look at when the Chelsea game happens, and the fact that the Chelsea game happens midweek, for me, suggests that maybe the club go, well, we're not going to do that, but we're not going to sack him after Man City because we've got Chelsea midweek and then we've got Liverpool at the weekend. So there's too much turnaround before you can bring a new manager in. So maybe they give him Chelsea, Liverpool, and then sack him after that. And then obviously the Brentford game, we're going with a new manager. But I go as far as saying this, unless something drastically changes and we somehow pick up some serious results in the next 3, which I just can't see happening at this moment in time, when you watch our performance levels, I am convinced that he will be sacked, at least by the Liverpool game. After the Liverpool game is done, going into that Brentford game, I would be shocked at this moment in time, having watched us at the weekend, having watched us all season, if we don't have a new manager. I think that's definitely going to happen. Ollie says, I can't see it being anyone else but Rodgers or Rose. Well, Rodgers surely would have a pass. So that won't go with surely would he need a work permit? I know he's Irish, but would he need a work permit? I don't think he would. Think he's safe till Xmas. By then, so far back, no one wants the job, and 49ers won't take the 4.5 million hit to fire him. Then no Jan sales, no reinforcement in January. Well, that is quite a negative opinion, Ernie, I must admit, but you might well be right. As I said, I don't think that's the case because of the downside of getting relegated, obviously, that we know it comes with, it's going to cost the football club so much money if they get relegated. You lose over 100 million revenue for the season after, etc. It's a nightmare if you go down. It really is. And obviously, you lose all your players on the cheap. We've got buy clauses, so at this moment in time, we'd lose all them players on buy. It would just be a nightmare if we get relegated, which we all know about. We've done it enough times now. We've done it. What have we done it? We've been relegated before the last few years. So, yeah, we don't want to do that. And I do think that as I said, I'll say this again, I'd be absolutely shocked if we don't have a manager going into that Brentford game. I might be wrong, but I think that's so obvious because you lose at Man City, it'll be 6 losses in 7. You lose against Chelsea, that's 7 losses in 8. You lose against Liverpool, and that's 8 losses in 9. No manager in the Premier League survives 8 losses in 9, no matter how bad you are, no matter how bad your squad is. So I think he's gone after Liverpool, personally. But obviously we might win the next. We're not gonna, but we might pick up points next year, and he might save his job. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's the situation with Daniel Farke. Anyway, let's move on to Stacky boy. So Stach, obviously, as we talked about in the introduction, Stach went down with an injury, didn't he? And came off against Aston Villa, went up for a header, fell down, landed on Martinez's boot. Not a particularly pleasant experience, I wouldn't imagine, for our German midfielder. But the situation with Stach is quite obvious. Basically, when you go off with a concussion injury, which Stach did at the weekend, you're not allowed to play a game for 12 days after. And 12 days after would obviously, because Chelsea's in the midweek game, would include the Chelsea game. So the update with Stach is, unless it's an extreme case, which it won't be, because in certain examples you can get times when basically they can play in a game if it's extreme circumstances, but he's not going to get extreme circumstances. So basically, Stach is going to be out for the next two. That's how it is. But I think what's important to note with Stach being out for the next two is, obviously, we don't want Gruev playing, and Ampadu is on 4 yellow cards at this moment in time. Now, he's got 7 games to survive, so he is going to pick up a suspension. But I think what's important with Ampadu is, don't get booked at Man City away. Because if Ampadu gets booked at Man City away, we'll go into the Chelsea game without Ampadu and without Stach, and your midfield 3 would have to be Tanaka, Gruev, and Longstaff. So what we need to do is make sure this weekend that Ampadu doesn't pick up a stupid yellow card and he misses the Chelsea game, because obviously Stach won't be available to be picked instead of him. So that's why for me it's important that Ampadu doesn't pick up that yellow card. But that's the situation with Stach. Unfortunately, he'll be missing for the next 2, and I think you're going to hear Daniel Farke, obviously, in his press conference tomorrow, will talk about that, and I think that's the update you're going to get from it. Ollie says, if we lose at City, which I think could be a minimum of 5, maximum 7, they will have to have someone else lined up. Yeah, well, I think, as I said, Ollie, I think we will lose heavily at City. I think the thing is with Man City away is we're terrible away from home anyway. We've actually been absolutely abhorrent away from home, basically all season. I don't like in the Wolves game, even in the second half, I didn't think we played that well. And we obviously talked about second half performances yesterday in quite a lot of detail. Go check it out if you haven't, after the show's finished, of course. But I think the situation is that we're terrible away from home. So we're going to Man City, even in Everton. I'm not sure what we mean by each year, but we're going to Man City, who are one of the best teams at home in the division, one of the best teams in the division. We are going to get hammered at the weekend. I think that's obvious. So as I said, I think that makes sense then to sack him, and then you go into the next 2 and you think, well, let's give it a go against Chelsea and Liverpool. I think if Chelsea and Liverpool are away from home, different story. But because they're at home, you've got to think that Leeds United can compete in them games. The only thing, as I said, that I think would probably put the owners off after Man City is the fact that the midweek games. If they weren't midweek games and Chelsea was like a normal week and Chelsea was next weekend, I'm sure they'd sack him after City. My only concern is because that Chelsea game is the Wednesday rather than it being the Saturday, and we play a midweek game that week, is there going to be time for a new manager to put his new ideas across? So are Leeds United going to stick with Daniel Farke because there just isn't time to do it, and then give him the Chelsea game and Liverpool game? I mean, what would you guys do in the chat? I know a majority of you want him sacked. But do you think it's a better idea to bring a new manager in for Chelsea without any sort of prep and go straight into it and then go into the Liverpool game without any prep? Or do you think it's better for the reverse side to happen and obviously we just to go in with Daniel Farke? Ollie says, if Amps gets booked, then City, then Gruev in midfield for Chelsea, good lord. Yeah, well, that's the situation, mate. That's why it's quite important, actually, that Ethan Ampadu doesn't get booked in that game. What would it take for you to be Farke out? I don't know. I'm getting closer, mate, I must admit. I think if we lose heavily at the weekend, I think I will be Farke out. I think I will be, yeah. I think if we lose at the weekend, I'll be Farke out. I might be wrong, because I can't tell you how I'm going to feel. It's quite hard to, I don't know. I think when you know with a manager, you know, sort of thing. So I'm not fully sure, really, but I would imagine I'm going Farke out if we lose at the weekend. Ian says, don't matter under Farke, Haaland will tear us apart, and at City, Chelsea will hammer us, and even Liverpool on a terrible run they will hammer us as well. Okay, so that's what I mean. So if we're going to lose part of this is like, if we're going to lose these games anyway, I would bet, I know this conversation has been brought around a few times, but if we're going to lose these next 3 anyway, are we better losing it with Farke in charge and not burning a new manager? My only thing is, I think whoever's in charge at City, we lose. But I think the 2 after, when I look at Chelsea and Liverpool at home, I know you guys might think I'm mad here. I think we can get something in them games. I really do. I think we've been okay at home. I think we've been good at home, actually. And obviously, we know Chelsea and Liverpool are going to be fantastic atmospheres at Ellen Road. Of course they are. Especially Chelsea, a huge rival of Leeds United. So I think the fans will be up for it. And I think they're 2 teams that actually do have a bad result in them. I know Liverpool are on an awful run at this point in time, so they've definitely got a bad result in them. But even Chelsea do have a bad result in them. They really do. So I really do look at it and go, they're games that Leeds United could pick up points in. I think we could. So I don't really want to just burn them games and not give us the best chance. So it's just deciding what gives you the best chance. Is the best chance with Daniel Farke in charge, where he obviously they've got a system that they know and they've played all season, or is the best idea to change manager and basically to go in fresh into them 2 games? I don't know. I'm tossing and turning on that, and that's probably what I'll think in my match reaction when we inevitably do lose Man City. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. But I'd rather put Howson in charge for City because the away end would back him heavily, seeing as he knows the club. Then go into the 2 home games with a new manager. Fair enough. So, but my only thing is that, as I said, going into them 2 games with a brand new manager who is just not going to have any time, and also is the new manager going to want to take a game against Chelsea and a game against Liverpool in the dugout before he's really had any proper training sessions? Because you've got to think of this logically. So Saturday we'll play a match. Sunday therefore will be a rest day for the players. That means Monday will be a light session. So we'll do it, and then they'll do a whole training session on the Tuesday. But again, it'll be quite a light session because we're playing on the Wednesday. So you're talking maybe a training session on Monday, light session on Tuesday, playing Wednesday. Then it'll be a light session on Thursday because obviously they'll have played the day before, so that will be a write-off day. Then you'll have probably a light-ish training session on the Friday, and then obviously you've got the match again on Saturday. So at what point is this new manager going to be able to put his imprint in terms of a schedule? I think that's the issue with it, Ollie. I really do. But look, as I said, I get your reason. I understand. Like I think you will be the one that most people agree with, in terms of, I think, where the fan base are at with it. Anyway, I'll leave it there today, people, because it's going to be a bit of a shorter show because I've got a few things on this evening. So I hope you've enjoyed it, as always. And we will be back tomorrow. Obviously, it will not be a live stream tomorrow because it's the preview show. So if you want to stick around and watch the preview, that will come out tomorrow about 8 p.m. Well, it will come out. I'll schedule it for 8 p.m. So stick around for then. It should be a good show, obviously. Probably going to talk about Leeds United losing the game, but it's always nice to look at other teams, and we know what we do. We get a tactical board out. In fact, I don't have a tactical board up now. I'm about to get it out. But yeah, I'd definitely check out the preview. I spend quite a lot of time doing the preview, looking into stuff and getting statistics for you guys. I think it's quite a good show. So if you do want to check that out, be around tomorrow. And then, of course, Friday will be a live stream. We'll be back to 8 p.m, which is my favourite slot. And actually, Friday's always my favourite show of the week. Everyone seems in a happier mood. It's always a good time. So definitely check it out on Friday. Saturday, we've got a match reaction. And then Sunday will probably be the closing whistle as well. So quite a busy end to the week, and hopefully some decent results, but probably not. Anyway, thanks all for watching as always, and I shall see you later, everybody.